you can find the code exercise and you want to click on the one that's day 4.1, heads or tails. Now, this is what you should start out with. There's a little bit of starting code, which you should try to not change. And the idea is that you're going to create basically a virtual coin toss program so that when you run the code, it should give you tails or heads depending on which random number was generated. Now, a really important thing to note is that the outcome has to be written like this or like this. It needs to be capitalized and it needs to be spelled correctly. The other thing to remember is that you need to use the random module in order for the errors to go away and for you to be able to generate random numbers. Now, one of the easiest ways of getting the computer to generate some random numbers or random sequences is by using something called a seed. If we give these mathematical equations something truly random to start with, then they can extrapolate from that and create random numbers or random sequences depending on what it is that we need. The seed can be any number of things. It could be the timings of your keystrokes when you're typing randomly on a keyboard, or it could be your mouse pointer movements, random directions and random speeds and random orientations to generate these random numbers. Or if you're, say, a state lottery, then you might use something a little bit more fancy, like looking at the decay pattern of something radioactive and using a Geiger counter to produce a seed to generate the lottery numbers. But of course, that means that if you know the seed, then you can pretty much work out what the numbers will be. So there's a really interesting story in the New York Times Magazine that I came across a while ago about the man who cracked the lottery. A guy who was able to modify the lottery number generator machine's code so that on the days when he was not working, he would get the lottery machine to use a seed that he knew. That means that he narrows down what could be potentially millions of different combinations of lottery numbers down to just a few hundred. And he won quite a few times in the lottery, but then he kind of got into trouble because he was doing something a little bit sketchy. But this is a really interesting, although illegal, application of pseudo-random number generation and the role of the seed. So I recommend taking a look at this article if you're interested. It's a really fascinating story. Now, do you remember earlier on when I was explaining about pseudo-random number generators, and I said that the random number generator for Python actually uses the current timestamp as the seed. But we can, in fact, change the seed to something that we want it to be. So, for example, I could say that instead of using the computer's clock time, let's use a number that I've just specified or pulled out of thin air, 1, 2, 3. So now when I hit enter, you'll see that my random integer is 1 and my random float is 1.338. The interesting thing about the seed is that if you specify the same seed, the random number that's going to be generated is always going to be the same. So let's try a different number, right? Let's try 321. Then we get different random numbers being generated. But if we go back to 1, 2, 3, then it's still 1 and 1.33. And if we go back to 3, 2, 1, then it's still going to be 5 and 1.95. When you run this code, it's going to ask you for a seed number, as you can see in the GIF here. And the reason why this is here is given that random number generators generate random numbers, it's very hard for us to check the outcome unless we can control which random number gets generated. So when we're testing it, we're going to be using a bunch of seed numbers that we came up with. But while you're testing your code and it's asking you for a seed number, then simply just type in a random bunch of numbers. And that is going to be used as the seed to generate your random number. So don't change the code on lines 4 to 7 and try to use what you've learned in the previous lesson to complete this challenge. So pause the video now and give that a go. All right, the first thing we're going to do, and in case you forget, then you're going to get errors such as undefined variable random, because that obviously comes from the random module. And once I've imported it into this project, then I can start using it and my errors will eventually go away. The next thing we need to do is to generate a random number, either a 0 or a 1, so that we can test which one we generated, and 1 means we output heads, 0 means we output tails. So below this line of code, I'm going to tap into that random module that I imported just now, and I'm going to use the randint function that we saw in the last lesson to generate a random number between 0 and 1, which pretty much just means I'm either going to get 0 from this function or I'm going to get 1, because there's really no other digits in between. So once I do get a result from this function, then I want to be able to store it inside a variable, which I'm going to call random side, the random side of the coin, right? And then I'm going to be able to check the random side and see if it's equal to 1, then it means I print heads. But else, or basically if it's not 1, then I'm going to print tails. So now I'm pretty much done with my code. Let's go ahead and hit run and just write a random number for the seed. And then we get tails, or if I use a different random number, then we might get tails again. I mean, it is random, right? Or we might get heads eventually. And I'm now done with this challenge. So how did you get on with it? If you got stuck, if you forgot how to do certain things, or if some parts of your code didn't work, or if you had errors, then this is the time to go back and fix it so that you actually understand what's going on and we can proceed. So once you're done, head over to the next lesson and we're going to learn about Python lists.